Have you ever looked in the mirror after 60 and quietly wondered, am I still someone a woman could be drawn to? Last fall, I met a man named Carl, 71, retired school principal, still sharp, still kind. He told me about a moment at a friend's dinner where a woman leaned in and said, "You make people feel calm." Carl hadn't flirted. He hadn't said anything clever. He just listened fully, softly, without trying to impress. That's when it hit him. Attraction isn't loud anymore. It's in the quiet places where you're most yourself. The truth is, after 60, what makes you attractive isn't youth, it's presence. And most men never get taught that. In this video, we're going to explore the real, often hidden language of attraction after 60 and how you might already speak it, even if you don't know it yet. Let's begin. I used to think attraction was something you had to earn, with charm, with looks, with effort. In my 40s, I believed the sharpest suit and the wittiest line could open any door. And for a while, maybe it worked, or at least I thought it did, but something shifts as the years pass. Loss carves space inside you. Time humbles your ego. And suddenly, you're not chasing attention anymore. You're craving connection. Real, steady, quiet connection. A few months ago, I had lunch with an old friend, Alan, 69, divorced a decade, 2 grown daughters, still carries that dry wit he had in college. He told me about someone he met at a community poetry night. Nothing romantic at first, just 2 people talking about a Mary Oliver line that moved them. But something about the way she looked at him, not through him, not past him, at him, stayed with him. I didn't say anything special. He said, but for once, I wasn't trying. And maybe that's what made the moment real. And that, I believe, is the heart of attraction after 60. It's not about chasing. It's not about fixing your posture or picking the perfect words. It's about presence, the quiet, grounded energy of someone who's no longer performing, who's lived enough to stop pretending, who shows up, fully flaws, stories, wrinkles and all, and says, "This is me, still open, still hopeful." At this stage in life, what draws someone in isn't the promise of a perfect future. It's the comfort of your presence right now. Women, especially those who've walked through their own fire, don't want to be dazzled. They want to be seen, heard, felt, and they can tell, almost immediately, if you're really with them or if your mind is somewhere else, proving something to yourself. It's in the way you listen without waiting to talk, the way you pause instead of rush, the way your eyes don't dart around the room, but rest gently on the moment you're in. Attraction now lives in the space between words. It shows up when you stop trying to be interesting and start being interested. And maybe that's the gift of growing older. You begin to realize that the most magnetic thing about you isn't what you show. It's what you allow others to feel in your presence. So if you've ever doubted whether you still have it, I'll tell you this, you do. But it no longer looks like it used to. And maybe, just maybe, that's a beautiful thing. Now let's take a closer look at where attraction really begins, not in your words, but in the silence between them. There's something sacred about silence, especially when it's shared. Years ago, I was at a small gallery opening. I remember walking into a quiet corner where a woman was standing alone, gazing at a painting of a lone figure, walking down a foggy path. I didn't say a word, just stood beside her a few feet apart and looked. We didn't speak for nearly 3 minutes. No clever line, no compliment, just presence. Eventually, she turned to me and said, "It's peaceful, isn't it?" I nodded. And that was the start of something that lasted for nearly 2 years. Looking back, I realize it wasn't the words that brought us together. It was the comfort in the quiet, the way we allowed each other to just be. That's the kind of energy most men overlook, the quiet signals that say far more than words ever could. After 60, attraction speaks a different language. It's not loud. It's not rushed. It doesn't need to dominate the room. It begins with how you hold your body, how you look at someone, and how open or guarded your presence feels. When you walk into a conversation, are your arms crossed, or is your posture relaxed and receptive? Do your eyes scan the room for an escape, or do they settle calmly on the person in front of you? Do you fill silences with noise, or do you let them breathe, giving space for the other person to feel safe? You see, a woman doesn't need you to be perfect, but she can feel when you're present. And presence is communicated long before you speak. A slow, steady smile, a warm gaze that doesn't flinch, a slight lean forward when she speaks, not too much, not too eager, just enough to show you're there. Even something as simple as resting your hand on a coffee cup, rather than fidgeting or hiding it in your lap, signals openness. You're not closed. You're not performing. You're here. And presence is rare these days. In a world filled with distractions, phones buzzing, thoughts racing, to be fully present with someone is a powerful gift. It says, "You matter right now. I'm not trying to impress you. I'm trying to understand you." That's magnetic. Women over 50, especially, are attuned to these small signs. They've seen the act. They've heard the lines. What they crave is realness, and they can sense it in your stillness. So the next time you're with someone, whether on a date or simply in conversation, notice what you're not saying. Notice how you sit, how you listen, how you pause before responding. Because sometimes the deepest connection begins not with hello, but with the way you look at someone when they speak, as if their words are the only thing that exists in that moment. That, my friend, is the kind of signal that lingers long after the conversation ends. Not long ago, I sat across from a woman I had just met. Kind eyes, silver-streaked hair, a quiet strength in the way she held her cup of tea. We were maybe 20 minutes into the conversation when she paused, smiled, and said, "You're not trying to fix anything. That's rare." I didn't quite understand what she meant at first, but later that night, it hit me. Most of my life, I thought attraction came from having answers, from knowing what to say, what to do, how to lead. But after 60, the most attractive thing you can offer isn't certainty, it's presence, emotional presence. It's the ability to stay with someone, truly with them, when the conversation turns tender, when stories surface about grief, regret, or longing, when someone shares something vulnerable, not to be solved, but simply heard. That kind of presence doesn't come from reading books or rehearsing lines. It comes from having lived enough to know that not everything needs a solution, that sometimes just sitting with someone in their truth is enough. Take my friend Leonard. He's 73, spent most of his working years as a contractor, hands like sandpaper, eyes like rain. He told me about a woman he dated briefly after his divorce. She had lost her brother the year before. One evening, she spoke of his soft voice, cracking a little, and Leonard didn't interrupt, didn't jump in with advice. He just nodded, gently touched her hand, and said, "Sounds like you miss him every day." That was it. No clever reply, no need to shift the subject, just space. Later, she told him, "That moment made me feel safe." That's emotional presence, and it's rare because it requires you to be okay with your own silence, with not being in control, with not rushing the moment forward. You see, women at this stage of life have carried their own weight. They've held families together, survived heartache, rebuilt themselves more times than they can count. What they're looking for now isn't a savior, it's a companion, someone who can sit beside their truth without shrinking from it. And to do that, you have to be emotionally present, rooted, calm, listening not just to the words, but to what's behind them. So how do you build that kind of presence? It starts with slowing down, asking questions like, what's something you've never said out loud but wish someone had asked? Or, what in your life makes you feel proud, not just accomplished, but alive? And when she answers, don't just listen, receive it. Let her feel that her story landed somewhere safe. That, more than any compliment or joke or plan, is what lingers. Because at this age, the most magnetic thing you can offer isn't a polished story. It's the courage to be still, stay open, and hold space for someone else's truth. And that, my friend, is the kind of presence that makes people remember you long after the evening ends. A few weeks ago, I had coffee with a man named Gerald. He's 70, tall, well-kept, thoughtful, been widowed 5 years. He told me he'd recently started dating again, and after 3 dinners with a lovely woman. She stopped returning his calls. He looked down at his cup and said, "I don't get it. I listened. I paid. I was polite. What did I miss?" I could hear the genuine confusion in his voice. And I've heard it before from good men, men with kind hearts, who are trying, but still missing something important. The truth is, many older men keep making the same silent mistakes not because they're careless, but because no one ever taught them the deeper language of connection. Mistake 1, trying to appear young instead of owning your age. I've seen it time and again, men dressing like they're 20 years younger, making jokes that don't land, trying to outpace time. But women at this stage aren't drawn to youth. They're drawn to truth, to the lines on your face that tell a story, to the quiet confidence of a man who's made peace with his years. When you try to be younger than you are, you're not fooling her. You're only telling her you're not fully at home in yourself. Mistake 2, talking too much, or too logically. You may think you're being helpful by offering advice, stories, facts, but connection rarely grows from information. It grows from emotion, from the small moments when someone says, "I felt that way too." If every conversation becomes a debate, a solution, or a lecture, she won't feel heard, she'll feel dismissed. Mistake 3, not leaving space for her to show up. Sometimes, in our eagerness to impress or fill silence, we forget to make room. We ask surface-level questions, then jump in with our own stories. But attraction is mutual. It needs space. It needs room for her to speak, reflect, and express without being rushed. One of the most attractive things you can say is, "Take your time. I'm here." Mistake 4, hiding behind humor or distance. This one's subtle. Many men, myself included, have used jokes to avoid being vulnerable. We keep things light because going deeper feels risky. But when everything stays on the surface, nothing truly connects. You don't have to reveal everything on the first date, but if you never show your real self, she'll feel it, and she'll quietly move on. The good news: these aren't fatal flaws, they're habits. Habits that can change the moment you become aware of them. And if you've recognized yourself in any of these good, that means you're paying attention, because presence begins with honesty, and honesty, especially with yourself, is the first door toward real connection. Up next, let's explore something surprising, the quiet power of saying nothing, and how that, too, can be one of the most powerful ways to connect. There's a kind of power that doesn't raise its voice. I learned that one evening in a quiet diner just outside Santa Fe. I was having dinner with a woman named Miriam, a retired art teacher, graceful and unhurried. The conversation had slowed, not because we ran out of things to say, but because neither of us felt the need to fill the silence. She sipped her tea, looked out the window, then turned to me and said, "Most men panic when the talking stops. You didn't. That's rare." That moment stayed with me, because I realized something. Stillness, when it's grounded, not withdrawn, can say more than words ever could. Many men, especially after 60, feel pressure to keep the conversation going, to be clever, to entertain, to lead. But some of the most attractive signals you can send don't come from your voice, they come from your presence. It's the way you sit without fidgeting, the way your eyes stay soft and steady, the way your energy says, "I'm not in a rush, I'm here with you fully." That's a message, and it speaks loud and clear. Women, especially those who've lived through noise, stress, and surface-level connections, notice when a man can be calm without being distant, quiet without being closed. Stillness isn't silence. It's attentive quiet. It's when you listen not just to her words, but to her pauses. It's when you take a breath before answering, letting what she said land inside you first. It's when your body stays open, no crossed arms, no checking the time, no shifting in your seat because where you are feels enough. Stillness invites trust. It creates space. And in that space, someone can breathe, open, feel safe. That's when connection grows. If you've spent years trying to say the right thing, here's something to try next time. Say less. Notice more. Let the moment stretch a little longer before you fill it. You might be surprised by what happens, because sometimes the most attractive thing you can offer isn't a line or a story. It's the rare feeling of being truly seen by someone who doesn't need noise to prove he's present. And if you've cultivated that stillness, you're speaking a language most men never learn. Now let's explore how to turn that quiet connection into something more through simple, meaningful ways to invite deeper moments together. Attraction is a spark, but connection that takes tending. After 60, building a connection isn't about making a grand impression. It's about creating space for something genuine to unfold, slowly, naturally, without pressure. I remember a man named Walt, 66, soft-spoken, retired Navy. He told me about a second date he had with a woman he met at a local writing group. We didn't go anywhere fancy. He said, "We walked through the botanical gardens, took our time, sat on a bench, talked about what we miss and what we still want. No wine, no music, no trying to impress, just walking, listening, asking better questions." And that's what guided the moment from surface interest to real connection. At this stage, connection grows best in simplicity: a walk through the park, a shared morning coffee, an art class, a small-town concert, even volunteering together for a cause you both care about. You don't have to entertain. You don't have to have a script. You just have to show up with intention. And the questions you ask, they matter more than you think. Instead of, "So what do you do?" Try, "What in life has taught you the most?" Instead of, "Tell me about your family." Try, "What's one thing you've never forgotten, even after all these years?" These questions aren't tricks. They're invitations. Open doors to the stories behind the eyes. And when she speaks, don't interrupt. Don't jump in to relate. Just stay there. Let her feel heard all the way through. Women, especially those over 50, aren't looking for a man with all the answers. They're looking for someone who asks with care. And don't forget, the setting matters. A loud restaurant full of distractions. Not ideal, but a quiet patio. A walk at sunset. A museum on a weekday morning. Those are places where people can breathe, reflect, and connect. And if you feel nervous, that's okay. It means you care. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest. Let her see your curiosity, your gentleness, your willingness to take things slow, not because you're uncertain, but because you value what's unfolding. Because connection, real connection, doesn't come from rushing toward a goal. It comes from honoring the moment for what it is: a meeting of two lives, two timelines, two stories that are still being written. And sometimes, all it takes is one thoughtful question and a willingness to truly listen to the answer. By now, you may be starting to see it. The secret language of attraction isn't about how well you perform. It's about how deeply you show up. When we were younger, attraction often felt like a game. Who could charm, impress, dazzle? We learned to chase, to posture, to prove ourselves. But now in this season of life, attraction shifts. It softens, deepens. It becomes less about standing out and more about letting someone in. Because the truth is, the most attractive thing about you isn't the version of yourself you try to polish. It's the version you no longer need to hide. It's in the way you pause before speaking, the way you carry your years without apology, the way you ask a quiet question and then wait not to respond, but to understand. Women feel that, especially women who've lived, lost, and loved. They're not drawn to flash, they're drawn to truth, to steadiness, to the kind of presence that says, I've been through things, but I'm still open. That's rare, and that's magnetic. So if you're wondering whether attraction is still possible at 60, 70, or beyond, let me assure you, it is. In fact, in many ways, it's richer than ever. Because now, it's not about winning, it's about belonging. Belonging in your own skin, in your own story, in the quiet miracle of two people meeting not to fill a void, but to walk beside one another, honestly, fully, without pretending. You don't need to be younger, louder, funnier, or richer. You just need to be real and willing and present, because the way you listen, the way you stay, the way you make someone feel safe to be seen, that, my friend, is what truly draws someone in, and you already have it. Thank you for spending this time with me. Now let me ask you, what part of yourself have you recently started to accept that might be more attractive than you ever realized?